If you're watching this, listen closely, because what happened that night inside the golden lit restaurant will stay with you long after the video ends, and once you hear the truth behind it, you won't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching stories, true kindness tales. Every evening, the same quiet ritual unfolded at Le Mirage, the most elegant restaurant in the city. A man named Adrian Cole, a 38-year-old self-made millionaire, always dined alone at the corner table near the window, his world silent not by choice but by fate, because Adrian had lost his hearing years ago in an accident that changed everything. The staff respected his space, communicated with written notes, and admired his calm presence, but no one truly approached him. That was how he preferred it, until one ordinary night turned extraordinary. That evening, Daniel Rivers, a 33-year-old single dad who worked the late cleaning shift, rushed in a few minutes early with his 2-year-old baby daughter, Ella, bundled in soft pink pajamas, her tiny hands clutching his uniform. Daniel had no choice but to bring her along. The babysitter canceled last minute, and he couldn't afford to miss work. The restaurant manager allowed it with a kind smile, as long as Ella stayed quiet in the storage room. But babies rarely follow rules. As Daniel swept the velvet floors and polished the tall glass panels, Ella played beside a bucket of warm soapy water, clapping her hands and humming her little baby tune. And in the candlelit distance, Adrian Cole sat alone, eating his dinner silently, unaware of the small world shifting just a few yards away. Daniel kept glancing over at his daughter, anxiety tightening his chest, hoping she wouldn't disturb anyone, especially the VIP guest who always chose silence. But fate had a different plan. At the exact moment Adrian lifted his glass, Ella's little ball rolled away from her, bouncing across the shiny marble and straight under Adrian's table. Ella stared, wide-eyed, then toddled bravely across the restaurant floor toward him. Daniel froze, whispering harshly, "Ella, no, no, sweetheart." But before he could reach her, she was already standing beside Adrian, tugging gently at the sleeve of his crisp gray suit. Adrian turned, surprised, eyes softening when he saw her tiny curious face. Ella lifted her arms toward him, wanting to be carried. The entire restaurant held its breath. Daniel rushed in, heart pounding, apologizing in a panicked whisper. "Sir, I'm so sorry, she didn't mean, she's just..." But then something unbelievable happened. Something Daniel didn't expect. Something no one in the room would ever forget. Adrian slowly extended his hands, and began signing to Ella. Not to Daniel. To the baby. Perfect, fluid sign language. Gentle gestures meant only for her, as if speaking kindly in the silent world he knew so well. And Ella, who could barely talk, giggled joyfully and copied his signs with her tiny fingers. Daniel's jaw dropped. The manager covered her mouth in shock. Even the chef peeked out from the kitchen doorway. Adrian's face, usually so calm, lit up with the warmest, gentlest smile Daniel had ever seen. He signed the word, "friend." Ella repeated it with her whole face glowing. Adrian laughed silently, a soft, breathy laugh visible only in the way his shoulders moved and his eyes brightened. For the first time in years, he wasn't dining alone. Daniel felt tears sting his eyes, but he didn't yet understand the deeper truth, the connection he unknowingly shared with Adrian. The truth that would change both their lives. The truth Adrian had kept hidden from the world. The truth that started long before this night, and was about to unfold in ways no one expected. And if you think this moment is emotional, wait until you hear what Adrian reveals next. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because this story is only beginning. Daniel stood frozen in the middle of the quiet restaurant, watching in disbelief as his 2-year-old daughter rested comfortably in the arms of a millionaire who rarely allowed anyone near him, and as Adrian silently signed to Ella with gentle precision, something inside Daniel stirred, a strange mixture of gratitude, confusion, and a faint, nagging sense that he had seen that smile somewhere before. After a few minutes, Adrian slowly stood up, cradling Ella against his chest with surprising ease, and gestured for Daniel to follow him to the unused lounge area near the back of the restaurant where the lights were softer and the world felt smaller. Daniel obeyed, still stunned, and sat across from Adrian as Ella giggled and tapped her tiny fingers on Adrian's tie. Adrian reached for the small notepad the staff always provided and began writing quickly, his handwriting neat and steady. "Your daughter understands gestures well. She is bright." Daniel blushed with pride but also embarrassment as he whispered, "Thank you. I swear she usually sits quietly, something just drew her to you tonight." Adrian smiled with a subtle sadness before writing another message, "Children don't fear silence. Adults do." Something about that line made Daniel's heart tighten. Silence had always been loud in his own life too, especially after his wife passed away shortly after giving birth to Ella, leaving him to navigate fatherhood alone. He wondered if Adrian had lost someone too. As if sensing his thoughts, Ella reached out and touched Adrian's cheek gently, and he closed his eyes for a moment, as though that small gesture unlocked a door he kept locked for years. Daniel cleared his throat. "You're really good with her," he said softly. "Do you have kids?" Adrian paused, then wrote only one word: once. The single word landed like a stone in Daniel's chest. Before he could speak again, Ella began signing something back at Adrian, clumsy, babyish movements, but unmistakably intentional. Adrian's eyes widened, not with confusion but recognition. He signed back slowly, carefully. Daniel watched helplessly, feeling like he was witnessing a conversation he couldn't understand but couldn't look away from. After a moment, Adrian took a deep breath and wrote another message. "Where did she learn that sign?" Daniel blinked. "Sign? I don't. She doesn't know sign language. I mean, I never taught her." Adrian stared at him, brows pulling together, and for a moment Daniel felt something electric, like Adrian knew something Daniel didn't. Ella babbled happily and reached for Adrian's pocket where a tiny silver locket peeked out. When she tugged at it, Adrian let her hold it carefully. Inside was a faded picture of a little girl, no more than 5 years old, with gentle eyes and dark curly hair. Daniel saw the way Adrian's hand shook and whispered, "Is that your daughter?" Adrian nodded once, slowly. "She passed away," he wrote. Daniel felt his breath catch. He didn't know what to say, so he simply placed his hand on Adrian's arm, a small gesture of quiet respect. Adrian continued writing. "She loved to sign. We used to talk without sound. She was my world." Daniel exhaled shakily. "I'm so sorry, truly." For the first time in years, Adrian didn't hide behind silence or polite distance. He looked directly at Daniel with eyes filled with old grief and unspoken memories. And Ella, as if sensing his pain, wrapped her tiny arms around Adrian's neck in a pure, innocent hug. Adrian pressed his face against the curve of her small shoulder, overwhelmed. The restaurant staff watched from a distance, stunned at the transformation of the usually reserved millionaire. After a long moment, Adrian gently handed Ella back to Daniel and wrote something unexpected. "You remind me of someone." Daniel frowned. "Who?" Adrian hesitated before writing. "The firefighter who saved my daughter and me after our accident. Before I lost my hearing. He carried me out. I never saw him again." Daniel's heart stopped. His hands began to tremble. His chest tightened. A memory he had buried years ago clawed its way back. A burning building, a desperate rescue, a man he had dragged from collapsing debris, a little girl he tried to reach but couldn't. And suddenly Daniel understood. Adrian wasn't talking about a stranger. He was talking about him. But he hadn't said it yet. Neither had Adrian. Their truth hovered quietly between them, waiting. And the moment it came out would change everything forever. Daniel's pulse hammered in his ears as he stared at Adrian, the truth flickering like a half-remembered dream, and for a long moment neither of them spoke, Adrian because he could not, and Daniel because he suddenly could not find words. The soft lights of the lounge reflected off the silver locket still in Ella's tiny hands, and as she clapped and babbled, oblivious to the tension, Daniel slowly reached into his wallet with trembling fingers. He pulled out a small, creased photo he always kept hidden, a photo of himself years younger, wearing his firefighter uniform, soot-stained and exhausted, taken the night he saved a man and his daughter from a burning apartment complex. He placed it gently on the table between them. Adrian froze. His breath caught. His eyes widened with a shock so raw it made the air around them feel electric. He looked from the photo, to Daniel, then back to the photo again, as if piecing together a puzzle he had tried to finish for years. His hands shook as he reached for the notepad and scribbled quickly, frantically, "It was you." Daniel nodded slowly, tears burning the corners of his eyes. "Yes," he whispered. "I didn't know your name back then. They rushed you to the hospital before I could check on you. I searched later but records got mixed up. I never found you again." Adrian swallowed hard, and his eyes glistened, not with grief this time, but with a kind of stunned gratitude, long overdue. He wrote again. "You saved me. You tried to save my daughter. I remember your voice trying to calm her." Daniel pressed a hand to his face, overwhelmed by the memory, the fire raging, the little girl coughing in his arms, her tiny fingers gripping his jacket. "I'm sorry," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I wish I could have done more." Adrian shook his head fiercely and wrote with strong, determined strokes. You did everything. You gave me a second chance at life. I never got to thank you. Daniel didn't know how to respond. He simply looked down at Ella in his arms and felt the weight of destiny settle gently around them, as though everything in his life, every struggle as a single father, every late shift, every moment of exhaustion, had somehow led him to this night. Quietly, Adrian reached for Ella again, and she crawled onto his lap with complete trust, laying her head against his chest. Adrian gently stroked her hair, his face softening with something like peace. Then he wrote another message, slower this time, almost hesitant. She signs like my daughter. How? Daniel shook his head helplessly. I don't know. Maybe she just picked it up by instinct. Kids sense things. Adrian studied Ella's small hands, her innocent joy, and for the first time since losing his daughter, he allowed himself to smile without sorrow shadowing the edges. As the restaurant grew quieter and the night deepened, Daniel shared stories of becoming a father alone, of losing his wife, of working long hours just to give Ella a life she deserved. Adrian listened with an intensity that made Daniel feel seen in a way he hadn't felt in years. Then Adrian wrote something Daniel never expected. Let me help you. Daniel blinked. Help me? Adrian nodded and wrote, you saved my life once. Let me make yours easier now. But Daniel shook his head. I didn't save you expecting anything in return. Adrian hesitated, then slowly added, not payment. Partnership. Daniel stared, confused. Adrian wrote even more carefully, I've been running a foundation for children with hearing challenges. I want you and Ella involved. You understand empathy. You protect people. Daniel's chest tightened with emotion. Ella reached for the pen and scribbled something that looked like a shaky little star. Adrian laughed silently, shoulders shaking. And just like that, the weight of the past lifted from the room, replaced by something warm, hopeful, and new. As the clock neared midnight, the staff pretended not to watch, smiling quietly at the unlikely trio, an exhausted single dad, a deaf millionaire rediscovering connection, and a giggling baby who somehow spoke the language of hearts. When Daniel finally stood to leave, Adrian gently squeezed his arm and wrote one final message, you didn't just save me that night. You saved me again tonight. Daniel's throat tightened as he whispered, and you gave me hope again. Outside, under the soft glow of streetlights, Daniel buckled Ella into her stroller, and she waved her tiny hand toward the restaurant window where Adrian stood watching them with a full, unguarded smile. Destiny had taken years, pain, loss, and silence to weave this moment, but it was perfect. So before we end this story, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more emotional, life-changing stories on true kindness tales, because the world is full of moments like this, waiting to be told.